Hi Year 4 and welcome back to our English lessons. We're still on The Tunnel by Anthony Brown and it's lesson 3. Our learning objective is identifying the key events of a story and establishing the overall meaning. So let's start today by reading the whole story. So thus far we've only given you the front cover where you've had to make predictions, and then yesterday we gave you part of the story and asked you to think about what might happen next and what might occur. Well, today I'm going to read the entire story out to you. So, once upon a time, there lived a sister and a brother who were not at all alike. In every way, they were different. The sister stayed inside on her own, reading and dreaming. The brother played outside with his friends, laughing and shouting, throwing and kicking, roughing and tumbling. At night, he slept soundly in his room, but she would lie awake, listening to the noises of the night. Sometimes he crept into her room to frighten her, for he knew that she was afraid of the dark. And there he is, crawling on his hands and knees with a mask on. She's there, hiding under her covers, staring up at the ceiling, not asleep. One thing of note while you look at this is have a look at the pictures in the background, have a look at the house on her bedside table, and have a look at the hooded coat that is hanging on the side of her wardrobe. They are indicators for what might happen in future. Also, look at her bed there. If you see where the shoes are they just where she's abandoned her shoes, or is there actually somebody hiding underneath her bed? Anyway, it's a bit of food for thought. Let's move on. Whenever they were together, they fought and argued noisily all of the time. One morning, their mother grew impatient with them. Out you go together, she said, and try to be nice to each other just for once, and be back in time for lunch. But the boy didn't want his little sisters with him. They went to a piece of waste ground. Why did you have to come, he moaned. It's not my fault, she said. I didn't want to come to this awful place. It scares me. Oh, you baby, said her brother. You're frightened of everything. He went off to explore. Hey, come here, he yelled a little while later. She walked over to him. Look, he said, a tunnel. Come on, let's see what's at the other end. No, you mustn't, she said. There might be witches or goblins or anything down there. Don't be so wet, said her brother. That's kid stuff. We have to be back by lunchtime, she said. There he goes. His sister was frightened of the tunnel, and so she waited for him to come out again. She waited and waited, but did not come. She was close to tears, but what could she do? She had to follow him into the tunnel. There she goes, and that's the image from the front cover of the book. The tunnel was dark, and damp and slimy and scary. At the other end, she found herself in a quiet wood. There was no sign of her brother, but the wood soon turned into a dark forest. She thought about wolves and giants and witches and wanted to turn back, but she could not. For what would become of her brother if she did? By now she was very frightened and began to run faster and faster. She's going through the forest. Have a good look around on that slide. Pause now if you want to do that. And there she is, continuing. Now you can start to see that she's picking up pace because her picture is blurred slightly. Again, pause now and have a look at some of the images that are in this picture. Some of the clues that you might see. Some of them are very well hidden. Some of them are quite obvious. Just when she knew she could run no further, she came to a clearing. There was a figure, still as stone. It was her brother. Oh no, she sobbed. I'm too late. Again, look at the picture, look at the clues, and look at his posture and his face. Also, look around his feet. She threw her arms around the old hard form and wept. The cold hard form and wept. Very slowly, the figure began to change colour, becoming softer and warmer. Then, little by little, it began to move. Her brother was there. Rose, I knew you'd come, he said. They ran back through the forest, through the wood, into the tunnel and out again together. When they reached home, their mother was setting the table. Hello, she said. You two seem very quiet. Is everything all right? Rose smiled at her brother, and Jack smiled back. The end. Right. It's an interesting story, more for what it doesn't tell you, for what it actually does tell you, okay? There's a lot more missing than is actually in there, but that will come up in subsequent lessons. So what I want you to do now is to pause this, and I want you to tell me what the gist of this text is. What is its purpose? What's its point? Pause now. Right, so it's a story of two siblings, that's brothers and sisters, who on the surface don't like doing things together, yet they do truly love each other. So, were our predictions correct? Well, this is going back to the previous lesson. I certainly was not correct. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, because when you're making predictions, you actually don't know what the outcome's going to be. You want to use it on the information that you've got at the time. So the tunnel travels back in time. That was my prediction, and that was linked to the image of the book. Maybe it takes you into the stories of the book that you were reading. Obviously, that did not happen, although there are a few clues in the images in the woods that would tell you that some of that is linked to fairy tales, but it certainly doesn't travel back in time. I thought that the tunnel might lead to a secret garden. That didn't happen either. I thought that the tunnel might lead to a magical strange world with talking animals akin to Alice in Wonderland. That certainly wasn't true, although there was an element of magic there because her brother had been turned to stone. So in 2 out of 3 of those predictions, I had some aspects of it that could be correct. So in fact, the story leaves more questions than it actually answers. So for me, it's like, who was in the woods? There was a fire that had been lit. There's an axe that's there. There's a rope hanging down from the tree. And there's also a house in the distance in one of them. Why did Jack turn into stone? Who turned Jack into stone? How was Rose able to save him? What powers did she unknowingly have? So we're going to talk about this more later in the next couple of lessons or so. So these are the key events of the tunnel. Well, kind of, okay? The key events of the story have been jumbled up. So I've written out what the key events are, but I've jumbled them up. And your job is to resequence them in the correct order onto your storyboard and then add a picture for each event. So she sees Jack, who has turned to stone. Being upset, she flings her arms around him. Now, I put that as number 1 here, but obviously it's not number 1 in the story. It happens way after she's crawled through the tunnel and then she's gone through the woods. Their mother has had enough and sends them out to play together. They go to a piece of wasteland. That happens relatively early in the story. Rose cannot find him as she wanders through the strange dark forest until she enters a clearing. Siblings Jack and Rose are not alike. They enjoy different things and spend an awful lot of time arguing. This revives him and they return home, having found new respect for one another. They find a tunnel, Jack goes inside, and a frightened Rose follows when Jack does not return. So your job is to write those sentences out, but put them into the correct order on your storyboard, and then draw a picture to go with each of them. You've done this sort of thing before. That should be relatively straightforward. And there are your answers. Should you need them, I'm going to flick back. Good luck. See you later. Bye-bye.